Hi, I'm David Bremner. I'm Principal Trombonist of the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about practicing and my tips for useful and productive practice time. As a musician, we spend so much time by ourselves in a practice room. You want to enjoy the process. It shouldn't be something that you look back after years and years of slogging away and think, oh man, I can't believe I spent all that time in the practice room feeling so terrible. So the most important tip that I can give you is to find a way to enjoy practice, find a way to feel like you're doing something productive, and find a way that at the end of every practice session you feel like you've achieved something, and that way you'll feel great about practicing all the time. A couple of things I like to think about when I'm practicing is, first of all, is getting into an environment or a room that you feel really comfortable being in. It's hard enough as it is being in a practice room for a long period of time, but when you're stuck in a room that's dark or damp, or maybe doesn't sound very good in there, it's really hard to feel motivated to carry on practicing. So make sure you try and find a room that's really nice to be in there. It's got a bit of sunlight if you can, and somewhere that makes you feel relaxed, because you want your practice time to be as productive as possible. So that's my first goal when I try and practice, is to make sure that I feel good about practicing. The second thing to remember is that it's your time. You know, you're the one that's doing it. There's no one else around. No one's watching you or listening to you. So it's really important that you feel comfortable and you feel positive about practicing. So if you walk into a practice room and you're in a bad mood, walk straight out again, go and do something else, have a cup of coffee, come back when you feel in a really productive mood about practicing, and that way you're going to get the best out of your time in a practice room. So it's really important that you don't practice for too long at one chunk, that you actually give yourself a bit of a break to refreshen. You only got a certain amount of concentration span, at which point then you stop being productive. So it's important that after a while, go away, go out of the room, freshen up, come back in again, and feel like it's another practice session, than just slogging away for hour after hour after hour. You'll stop actually making headway on a lot of the stuff, and start to get bogged down with being in a practice room. I think most instrumentalists and singers have to do a really good warm-up, which helps you get started in your practice routine. So I like to do 45 minutes or so at the beginning. For a brass player, I end up having to do breathing exercises and buzzing. I do a bit of stretching with my body to make sure that I'm limber and ready to practice. And then I go away and get out of the practice room. And when I come back, then I'm ready to start my practice and get stuck into the notes that I need to learn. And then when you're doing the bulk of your practice, I find my biggest rule that I have is to not do the same thing 2 days in a row, because I don't want to become stagnant. I don't want to get bored with practicing. So I try and mix it up as much as I can, practicing different etudes, different exercises, and then if I'm practicing the same piece of music for something that's coming up, we might have a big symphony in the orchestra. I'll try not to do it every day, so that it doesn't feel like it's becoming overwhelming about this piece of work that's coming up. I try and mix it up with other music, practice things that I've learnt before that I want to play again, and that way I feel when I practice I feel fresh all the time. I'm not bogged down by the same music all the time. I think it's really important that when you start your practice each day, that you're quite structured. I find that if I don't have a goal with my practice, then the practice sessions tend to just meander along, and I'm thinking about finishing and when I'm going to stop. Whereas if you have a structure in place, so you know what you're going to do, then you're very proactive about the things that you need to achieve in your practice. So it's important that when you start a practice session, you know exactly the things you're going to practice for that period of time, 2, 3, 4 hours, and at the end of that, when you've achieved those things, that's when the practice stops. You don't just keep going and on and on and on, but actually know that these are the things I want to achieve today, and when you've achieved them, then that's great. You can do something else. Another thing I like to concentrate on is goals. We often have goals in our performances, so we're worrying about recitals or auditions, getting into youth orchestras and various things. But I also like to set goals when I'm practicing. For a brass player, things like single tonguing double tonguing, they're things that you can easily work out whether you're improving by how much faster you can go. So I like to try and set goals in my practice, whether that's to do with the range of the notes that you're playing, working on upper register or lower register, whether it's practicing technical issues like tonguing. It goes with any instrument, that there's these things that you can judge on how well you're improving. So set goals all the time with your practice to make sure that you're achieving that you're improving, and when you achieve these goals, you'll find that will also help you improve in lots of different aspects of your playing as well. So.